Nag-record na.
So, good evening, everyone. I'd like to draw your attention to the fact that this group will take you to several Asian countries and introduce you to various cuisines. But first and foremost, let us pray. Miss Ashley, can you lead the prayer?
Let's bow our head and pray. Thank you, Lord, for this another day. May you forgive us on our sins and give us knowledge as we start our online class today. May you bless and enlighten each one of us so that we will be able to understand our lessons. In Jesus' name, Amen.
So, good evening once again. Let's continue and meet the people who will take you to various Asian countries. Next slide, please. So first, our speaker for today, we will meet Pascual, Miss Ashley Santiago, Jalaika Paralag, Miss Jalin Padron, next slide. Next slide, please. Miss Jenna May Salarzon, Mr. Brian Margado, Miss Shaina Sapway, and last, Miss Rean Romantico. Next slide, please. Next slide po. So we will discuss the following geographical characteristics, visa requirements, legal documentation, major attractions, gastronomy, and cultural attributes of the different countries. Next slide. Slide, please. So, ayun, we would like to um, say some quotes. Sometimes you will never know the value of a moment until it becomes a memory. Next slide, please. So let us hear Miss Jenna Salarzon and Mr. Brian Margado to discuss the following country, which is China. Miss Jenna, Mr. Brian, take it away.
Thank you, Ms. Pascual. Again, good day, everyone. Today, I will be discussing and sharing some facts and information about China. Wait, and when we talk about Chinese geography, the most important question to ask is where in the world is China? So, for us to know, China is located in East Asia, and as of the latest info, the China is the third largest country in the world with an area of 9.6 million square kilometers. China is the world's most populous country with a population of more than 1.4 billion, Also, this country is bordered by 14 countries: the Afghanistan, Bhutan, India, Kazakhstan, North Korea, Kyrgyzstan, Laos, Mongolia, Myanmar or Burma, Nepal, Pakistan, Russia, Tajikistan, and Vietnam. So administratively, China is divided into 23 provinces and 5 autonomous regions: the Inner Mongolia, Guangxi, Tibet, Ningxia, and Xinjiang, Tianjin, Shanghai, and Chongqing. And there are 2 special administrative regions, the Hong Kong and Macau. Okay, let's proceed to fast facts to know some details about this country. First, China's official name is the People's Republic of China. The country's capital city is Beijing. The largest city is Shanghai. And as I mentioned kanina, China has an area of 9.6 million square kilometers. Their form of government is communist state. And when we say communist state, it is a state whose constitution claims to follow the principles of communism. Despite following the ideology of Marxism and Leninism, its form of government has only a single political party, the Communist Party. China has a population of 1.4 billion, and their official language is Standard Chinese and Mandarin. The religion also is Buddhism, Taoism, Islam, and Christianity. Next, Chinese money comes by 2 names, the yuan and the people's renminbi. The distinction is subtle. While renminbi is the official currency of China, where it acts as medium of exchange, the yuan is the unit of account of the country's economic and financial system. Next, the interesting facts. China is the owner of the pandas in the world. Any pandas in the other countries are lent from China. As per reports, China has direct ownership of over every living giant panda around the world, even if they might have been born in another country. Pandas live mainly in temperate forests high in the mountains of southwest China, where they subsist almost entirely on bamboo. Next, so this is one of the mountain ranges in China, the Himalayas or Himalaya. Mountain range in China separating the plains of the Indian subcontinent from the Tibetan Plateau. The range has some of the planet's highest peaks, including the highest Mount Everest. The Himalayan range is made up of 3 parallel ranges often referred to as the Greater Himalayas, the Lesser Himalayas, and the Outer Himalayas. And its highest point, the Mount Everest, with a height of 8,840 meters above sea level, Mount Everest is absolutely the highest mountain of the world. It lies in the Mahalangur section of the Himalayas, which bordering China and Nepal. Its Tibetan name is Komolangma, meaning Mother of Earth, while Sagarmatha is another name of mountain in Nepal, which means Goddess of the Sky. Next, the Gobi Desert of China. It is the fifth largest desert in the world, larger than the whole of Pakistan. The Gobi is a cold desert, and depending on the time of year, you may even find frost and snow on its dunes. Next, there are also two major rivers. The first is Yangtze River, or also known as in one country. It rises as Hari Hill in the Tanggula Mountains and flows 6,300 kilometers in a generally easterly direction to the East China Sea. So bakit nga ba famous ang Yangtze River? The Yangtze River is the most important river of China. It is the country's principal waterway and its basin is China's great granary. It contains nearly one-third of the national population. Second is the Yellow River, or also known as Huanghe River. It is the second longest river in China after the Yangtze River, and the sixth longest river system in the world at the estimated length of 5,464 kilometers. So yun, rivers in China is so important because extracting water from rivers threatens the livelihoods of millions, contributes to higher level of pollution and increases tension between countries. China's rivers have sustained its people for generation and are now important part of its identity and heritage. Next, the climate in China. The climate in China is extremely diverse from the tropical regions in south to subarctic region in the north. China has the climate dominated by dry seasons and wet monsoons, which make for clear temperature differences in winter and summer. In winter, northern winds come from high latitude areas are cold and dry. In summer, southern winds from areas at lower latitude are warm and moist. Next, their visa requirement for China. In tourist application requirement for China visa, you need a passport, photographs, two color ID photos, letter of invitation, proof of state residency, visa central order form, visa application form, travel record, proof of vaccine, and additional documents. Let's now proceed to cultural attributes. In every culture, language is one of the most important cultural attributes, and yet the following are the different languages in China. First is the Mandarin. As I've mentioned kanina, it is one of their main language. The most spoken one, also known as Northern Chinese. Second, Wu, spoken mostly in the coast of China. Third, Yu, this is not intelligible by speakers of other dialects and is known as Cantonese. Fourth, Xiang, spoken in southern China, Huan province. It is intelligible with Mandarin knowledge. Fifth, Min, spoken in the Fujian province as well as Taiwan. Six, Gan, spoken in a variety of provinces including Jiangxi and Fujian. It is also known as Kan. And last, the Hakka. Hakka is spoken mainly in isolated regions and is comprised of 13 different dialects. Wait. And the main celebrations in China. First, the Chinese New Year festival, and of course, alam na natin to. Chinese New Year is the Chinese festival that celebrates the beginning of a new year on the traditional Chinese calendar. The festival is usually referred to as the Spring Festival in mainland China and is one of the several Lunar New Years in Asia. This is without a doubt one of the most important Chinese festivals with its history of more than 4,000 years, and you will get to know about these Chinese New Year traditions on this day. The Chinese New Year festival is celebrated according to the lunar calendar on the first lunar month, or held on the 1st of February. Second, the Yuan Shao, also called the traditional Chinese Lantern Festival in China. Yuan Shao Festival is held on the 15th day after the Spring Festival. It marks the continuation and end of the New Year celebration. Among all the festivals in China, this festival involves enjoying the sight of beautiful lanterns of different shapes and sizes at night. Third, the Mid-Autumn Festival. This is one of the third most important Chinese festival. The Mid-Autumn Festival is a traditional holiday originating from the worship of the moon, and it symbolizes harvest and family reunion. Now may I call on Mr. Morgado to share with us the major attractions and cuisines of China.
Hello everyone, the Great Wall of China. Nobody can be a true hero unless he has been on a Great Wall, goes the popular Chinese saying, one that clearly demonstrates the importance placed upon this unique ancient monument. The magnificent Great Wall of China, known in Chinese as Changcheng, or the Long Wall, it stretches more than 6,000 kilometers from the fortresses of Shanchai-Guan in the east all the way to Jiayujuan in the west, passing through Hebei, Tianjin, Beijing, where the best preserved sections of the wall can be visited. The Forbidden City and the Imperial Palace in Beijing. China's largest and most important building, the Forbidden City or Zijincheng, also known as the Imperial Palace, is situated in the very heart of Beijing and is a must-see when visiting the country, starting during the Yuan dynasty between 1271 and 1368. Okay, next slide, please. Next slide. Third is the Terracotta Army of Xi'an. It was it was while digging wells on the outskirts of Xi'an in the 1970s that farmers stumbled across what was to be China's most important archaeological find. The Terracotta Army distributed over three large underground pits and built to guard the first emperor's tomb, and find included more than 8,000 life-size warriors, some 520 horses, and more than 100 chariots, along with numerous other non-military characters dating from around 280 BC. The Summer Palace in Beijing. An easy 15-kilometer commute from Beijing, the sumptuous Imperial Summer Palace is set amid more than 700 acres of beautiful parkland and is one of the China's most visited attractions. While the palace itself was built in 1153, its a large lake was added in the 14th century to enhance the imperial garden. Next, please. Cruising the Li River of Guilin. The town of Guilin in the northeast corner of Guangxi boasts some of China's most beautiful countryside and is famous for the Li River, which meanders through the town and surrounding karst mountains. While for hundreds of years, this unique scenery has attracted poets and artists and has been the subject of countless fairy tales and legends these days. It's popular with tourists from around the world wanting to see this natural splendor up close. Okay, next please. At this very moment, let us now move to the cuisine and delicacies of China. Next, Guangdong or Cantonese cuisine. Sweeter, favoring braising and stewing adding various mild sauces. Cantonese food is the most popular style internationally. Guangdong province and Hong Kong are noted for fine seafood dishes and rice dishes. They eat a very wide variety of foods. The dishes they serve don't have a strong flavor since it is lightly seasoned and they often tend to be a little sweet. Jiangsu cuisine. In Chinese, sukai. Fresh, moderately salty and sweet precise cooking techniques, favoring seafood, soups and artistic colorful presentation. Jiangsu province and China's biggest city, Shanghai, have a very refined gourmet cuisine that is often served at government banquets. Next, Shandong cuisine or Lu cuisine, in Chinese, Lu Kai, popular in China's Shandong province and southern Liaoning province, features umami, salty, sweet, and sour flavors using mashed soup, scallion, ginger, and garlic. Originated in the spring and autumn period of 770 to 476 BC, and the Ze cuisine, or in Chinese, Zekai, popular in China's Zhejiang province, features light and fresh, crisp, tender, good at controlling fire heat, prefer yellow wine as a special seasoning. Popular in Zhejiang cuisine is often lightly seasoned with appealing appearance. Next is Fujian cuisine, or the Min cuisine. In Chinese, it is Min Kai. Pop- Popular in Chinese Fujian province, features light, fresh, sweet, and sour, special condiment, red vinacay, woodland delicacies, and seafood widely used for ingredients. Originated in Fuzhou in Fujian, Fujian cuisine dishes are light, fresh, mellow, and non-greasy in general. The food materials used are pretty rich, containing both materials in land and seas. The common seasoning include red vinacay, sugar, and vinegar. Like Jiangsu cuisine, Fujian cuisine attaches great importance to cooking techniques as well. Notable Sichuan dishes, Buddha jumps over the wall, braised clam with chicken soup, sweet and sour cheese, sliced whelk in red vinacay, Fujiu, fish balls, oyster omelette, and drunken ribs. And these are the special cuisine and delicacies of the China. Okay, next please. Okay.
So may I call, thank you, Mr. Brian. So may I call Miss Jeline Padron to tour you in Japan. Miss Jeline.
Ayan, welcome to the country of Japan. Next slide, please. Next slide. So Japan has five main islands. The first one is Hokkaido. So Hokkaido, it is the second largest, northernmost, and least developed of Japan's four main islands. Its winters are harsh, with heavy snowfall, below freezing temperatures, and frozen waters, while summers are not as hot and humid as in other parts of the country. Hokkaido draws many outdoor enthusiasts, including skiers and snowboarders in the winter, and hikers, cyclists, and campers from June to September because there's untouched nature, various national parks, and rural landscape. Hokkaido is renowned for the high quality and freshness of its seafood, as the cold water surrounding Japan's northernmost prefecture, are ideal for fish and sea vegetation. Within the prefecture, some areas are particularly famous for certain products such as the uni or sea urchin of Rishiri and ribbon. Next slide, please. The next island is Honshu. Honshu, largest of the four main islands of Japan, lying between the Pacific Ocean and the Sea of Japan. It forms a northeast-southwest arc extending about 800 miles and varies greatly in width. The coastline extends 6,266 miles. Honshu has an area of 87,992 square miles and contains almost three-fourths of the total number of ken, which is the prefectures of Japan. Honshu is regarded as the Japanese mainland. Much of the country's early history took place in the southern region. The Pacific coast is the country's main economic center, lying with the metropolitan areas of Tokyo, Yokohama, and Osaka, Kobe. And Honshu contains Japan's highest mountain, which is Mount Fuji, and its largest lake, which is the Lake Biwa. Next slide. The next one is the Shikoku. Shikoku Island, the smallest of the four main islands of Japan. Oh, sorry, five main islands. It is separated from Honshu by the Inland Sea and the Kii Strait, and from Kyushu by the Bungo Strait. The island is divided into the prefectures of Ehime, Kagawa, Kochi, and Tokushima. Shikoku is also one of the country's Chiho, which includes, in addition to the main island, nearby islands associated with its constituent prefectures. Much of the island's landscape is mountainous, and the population is concentrated in urban areas on narrow plains along the coast. Agriculture is intensive in the north. Rice, barley, wheat, and mandarin oranges are among the major crops. Fishing is well developed and salt is produced from evaporated seawater. Industries produce petroleum, non-ferrous metals, textiles, wood pulp, and paper. Important cities and industrial centers are Matsuyama, Takamatsu, Kochi, and Tokushima. Shikoku is connected to Honshu by three multiple span over water bridges constructed in the late 20th century. The Onyaruto Bridge in the east and the Akashi Strait Bridge. The Seto Great Bridge in the northeast central area and the Kuroshima Strait Bridge in the northwest central section. Area island is 7,063 square miles. Region 7,259 square miles. And region 2,977,282. Next slide. Next slide po. The next one is Kyushu. Japanese Kyushu, which means nine provinces. Southernmost and third largest of the four main islands of Japan. It is bordered by the East China Sea to the west and the Pacific Ocean to the east. Its name refers to the nine ancient provinces, Kuni, into which the island was once divided. Kyushu is also the country's southernmost Chiho, or region, which includes, in addition to the main island, nearby islands and the long Ryukyu archipelago stretching out for some 700 miles to the southwest. Kyushu is separated from the island of Honshu to the north by the Shimonoseki Strait and from Korea to the northwest by the Tsushima Strait or Eastern Channel. The island is composed of complex system of volcanic ranges. The climate in the south is subtropical, and Kyushu is known for its subtropical vegetation and heavy rainfall. It is the site of Mount Aso, the world's largest active volcanic crater, and of Asakuju, Kirishima-yaku, and Unzen Amakusa National Park. Beppu is a well-known hot spring resort. Next slide, please. Let's move on to the next island, which is the Okinawa. Next slide po. Okinawa Ken or Prefecture, Japan in the Pacific Ocean. The prefecture is composed of roughly the southwestern two-thirds of the Ryukyu Islands. The archipelago forming a division between the East China Sea to the northwest and the Philippine Sea to the southeast. Okinawa Island is the largest in the Ryukyus, being about 70 miles and 7 miles wide, and having an area of 463 square miles. Naha on the island is the prefectural capital. Before Okinawa became a prefecture during the early part of the Meiji period, it was a semi-independent kingdom under the influence of both Japan and China. Tuna fishing, cattle raising, sugar refining, and pineapple canning constitute Okinawa's main economic activities, and tourism is of growing importance. Sweet potatoes, rice, and soybeans are also grown on the island, and textiles, sake or rice wine, and lacquerware are manufactured. Offshore wells yield petroleum. Next slide, please. Next slide po. So let's move on to the facts about Japan. Number one, Japan is extremely clean. So we all know that the streets in Japan are immaculate. Even in Tokyo, the capital and a massive megacity, all streets are spotless and litter-free. That being said, how does Japan accomplish this? It's all about their mindset. The Japanese very seldom leave trash on the streets. Additionally, volunteers of all ages clean the streets for the simple reason that they want to live in a tidy city. Second, Tokyo is the world's most populated city. The Greater Tokyo metropolitan area encompasses three areas and is home to Japan's capital, Tokyo. Tokyo is estimated to have 38.14 million, rendering it the world's most populous megacity. Japan's population is 98.5% Japanese. This may seem absurd, but the modern world is becoming increasingly multicultural. However, this is not the case in Japan. This is largely due to stringent visa requirements and a cultural mindset keeping its distinctive and ancient culture steeped in old traditions. So Japan has canned foods restaurants. Japan is also a great destination for canned food fans, as numerous restaurants and bars specializing in this food culture. Mr. Kansa is the most popular chain of such restaurants. The shelves of these restaurants have diverse array of canned foods from around the world. The variety on the shelves ensures that even the most discerning guest will find something new to try. And speaking of canned foods, Japan is filled with vending machines. You'll find them everywhere. Everywhere on the streets, selling everything from second beer to tea and food. Next one is Japan has a high life expectancy. Japan is virtually tied with Hong Kong in terms of average life expectancy at 83.6 years and 84 years. Numerous people attribute Japan's long life expectancy to the country's historical healthier diet than Western countries. Their diet includes a greater amount of fish, less red meat, and more vegetables, and smaller portions. The Japanese hot spring probably have to do with the long lives in the Japan. These hot springs known as onsens are frequented by the Japanese for their healing properties. The next one, forest cover Japan. The forest covers 67% of Japan. When you think of Japan, you're probably thinking of the country's numerous cities. Surprisingly, 67% of Japan is covered in forests. The Japanese are extremely attached to nature. You will find that most Japanese have a profound appreciation and love of nature. That is due to the ingrained spirituality of the Shinto religion. That is one of many Japan facts. The reason that Shinto followers believe that all the nature, from rivers and mountains to rocks, are possessed by spirits. So Mount Fuji is a holy site. Mount Fuji is not only Japan's highest mountain, it is a sacred site for Shinto religion since the 7th century. The cool thing is that Princess Konohana Sakuya is the kami, or the divine person, of Mount Fuji in the Shinto religion, and the cherry blossom is her symbol. So even if you are not a follower of a Shinto religion, it is said that you can sense the area's tranquility and eerie atmosphere. Next slide. So let's talk about the geographical location of Japan. So Japan is an island country comprising a stratovolcanic archipelago over 3,000 kilometers along the Pacific coast of East Asia. It consists of 6,852 islands. So the five main islands are Hokkaido, Honshu, Kyushu, Shikoku, and Okinawa. There are 6,847 remote islands. The Ryukyu Islands and Nanpo Islands are south and east of the main islands. The territory covers 3,000 377,973.89 kilometers. It is the fourth largest island country in the world and the largest island country in East Asia. The country has the sixth longest coastline, 29,751 kilometers, and the eighth largest exclusive economic zone of 4,470,000 kilometers in the world. Next slide. Let's talk about the visa requirements. Visa requirements for tourism. The first one is a passport. Of course, broken passport is not accepted. Passports must be signed and must have at least two blank visa pages. Visa application form available at the embassy website, at the entrance of the embassy, or at any of the accredited travel agencies. Application form should be filled out all items correctly. If the item is not applicable, you must fill in NA. Embassy may not accept application with blank item, no signature, or no date in the form, may deny an application that is filled out incorrectly or wrong information. If applying without a sponsor, a copy of your certificate of employment must be submitted. Provide a schedule and travel plans of the trip. The next one is passport photo, birth certificate. So birth certificate, it must be issued within 1 year from PSA main office or Service Outlet Center. If the birth certificate from PH Statistics Office is unreadable or has incomplete information, please submit the birth certificate issued by PSA together with a birth certificate issued by the local civil registrar. Marriage certificate, if the applicant is married. It must be issued within 1 year from PSA main office. In case there is no record in PSA, you must submit a certificate of non-record from PSA together with a marriage certificate from the local civil registrar. The next one is bank certificate. Validity of bank certificate is 3 months from the date of issue. And the last one is applicant's income tax return from 2316. Form 2316. Clear photocopy and must be latest. Next slide. So, visa requirements naman for visiting friends or distant relatives. Parehas din sa nauna, madami lang na idagdag. So, the first one is passport. Second one is complete visa application form. Next one is passport, passport photo, and birth certificate. Next one is marriage certificate, bank certificate, applicant's income tax return for Form 2316, and a clear photocopy. Invitation letter from guarantor in Japan, resident certificate, or what they call Jumilyo, of the friend or acquaintance and the guarantor in Japan. Bank certificate, income tax return, guarantee letter, in income certificate or what they call Shotoku Shomeisho from City Hall, tax return certificates with gross income from tax office. Kakuteshi Kokusho Hikae or bank certificate. Next slide. The third one is the visa for visiting relatives. Ganun din po. Valid passport, a completed visa application form, passport photo, birth certificates to prove relationship, marriage certificate, family registration, what they call kosekitohon, if relative in Japan has a Japanese spouse or relative. Residence certificate, jominho, of the relatives in Japan and of the guarantor. Copy of residence card or special permanent resident certificate of relative in Japan, bank certificate, applicant's income tax return, guarantee letter, and income certificate. Next slide. So, ito, visa requirements for commercial purpose. First one is the valid passport, a completed visa application form, passport photo, and birth certificate, employment certificate or the certificate of membership, travel order, dispatch letter, invitation, business registration, or takibotohon, must be issued within 3 months, and the original. Copy of the latest quarterly report, company brochure, pamphlet, or any outline of the company or organization. Proof of activities in Japan, like contract, transaction details, conference materials, etc. And the last one is guarantee letter. These are the legal documents of Japan. The visa application form has to be completed and signed. So you can and sign. The first one is passport. Your passport must be valid for at least another 6 months and have at least 2 blank pages for the visa to be affixed in. If you intend to stay or for longer than 6 months, your passport has to be valid for a longer time as well. You must also include photocopies of the relevant pages of the passport, such as the issue and expiry date, personal information. Next one is the passport size picture. Along with the required documents of a Japan visa application, you also need pictures which follow these specifications. Dimension, which is 4.5 centimeter by 4.5 centimeter. White background taken in the last 6 months. You must be staring straight ahead with a neutral facial expression. Your entire face has to be visible. Your name and birth date have to be written on the back. So the number of pictures you have to submit depends on the Japanese embassy or consulate in which you are applying, as well as the purpose of your travel. Flight itinerary. Include a detailed plan of the arrival and departure dates, flight reservation number, etc., along with the other visa requirements. You don't have to actually purchase the ticket. Daily itinerary. You need an itinerary which lists your daily activities in Japan, such as places where you'll go, activity, plans, and the dates. Find the sample itinerary of Japan's visa at the website of Japan Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Proof of accommodation. You may also have to submit proof of accommodation in Japan, such as the hotel reservation or apartment booking. Proof of financial solvency. Submit a document which proves you have a sufficient financial means to cover the duration of your stay. Letter of invitation. Letter of guarantee. Income certificate issued within the last 3 months. Residence certificate if they are a foreign resident of Japan. And if you are applying for student visa, you can submit your bank in or income statements, proof of scholarship, proof you receive financial aid, letter of sponsorship, if someone is sponsoring you, along with your sponsor's proof of income and bank statements, and letter of invitation if you are applying for a Japanese visa to visit a family member or relative, they should write you a letter of invitation detailing your relationship, the reason you are visiting. If you are traveling for business, you need a letter of invitation from the company in Japan which has to be stamped with the company seal and state the reason and purpose of the invitation. The invitation letter must be addressed to the Japanese embassy where you will apply for the Japan visa. Proof of travel purpose. Depending on the reason for your travel, there are additional Japan visa requirements, which is Japan tourist visa requirements, Japan business visa requirements, Japan student visa requirements, Japan work visa requirements, Japan working holiday visa requirements, Japan transit visa requirements, Japan certificate of eligibility. So if you are visiting Japan for reasons other than tourism, transit, business, and or a short-term visit, then you need the Japan certificate of eligibility. The Japan certificate of eligibility is issued by the immigration services in Japan before you enter the country. This means you need to have a sponsor there already who can submit the application on your behalf. So meanwhile, you have to send them any relevant supporting documents. Depending on the type of visa you're applying, your sponsor could be your employer, your school, or your spouse. Next slide, please. Next slide. Next slide po. So now let's move on to the major attractions in Japan. Next slide. The Golden Pavilion. Kinkakuji, or the Temple of the Golden Pavilion, is the most popular tourist attraction in Japan and Kyoto. The pavilion was originally built as a retirement villa for Shogun Ashikaga Yoshimitsu in the late 14th century. Unfortunately, the pavilion has burnt down in 1950 by a young monk who had become obsessed with it. 5 years later, the temple was rebuilt as an exact copy of the original. Emphasis is placed on the building and surrounding gardens being in harmony with one another. The pavilion is covered in gold leaf, which highlights the reflection of the pavilion, the pond, and the pond's reflection on the building. Next. The next one is Mount Fuji. Mount Fuji is the highest mountain in Japan at 3,776 meters or 12,388 feet. The volcano's exceptionally symmetrical cone is a well-known symbol of Japan and is frequently depicted in art and photographs as well as popular tourist attraction for sightseers and climbers. An estimated 200,000 people climb Mount Fuji every year, 30% of whom are foreigners. The ascent can anywhere between 3 and 8 hours, while the descent can take from 2 to 5 hours. Next slide po. Next one is the Tokyo Imperial Palace. So the Emperor of Japan makes his home at the Tokyo Imperial Palace. It is also functioned as an administration center and museum to showcase Japanese art and history. The palace is set on the ruins of older castles that were destroyed by fire or war, and architects have honored the past by incorporating design elements of the different eras into the modern palace. The new palace is now surrounded by traditional Japanese gardens and has many reception and functions room to receive guests and welcome the public. Next po. The next one is the Tokyo Tower. So the Tokyo Tower is a testament to the advancement of technology and modern life. It is inspired by the Eiffel Tower design. It is the second tallest man-made structure in Japan and functions as a communication and observation tower. Visitors can climb the tower for parallel views of Tokyo and surrounding areas as well as visit shops and restaurants. Next po. Todaiji Temple. The Todaichi Temple in Nara is a feat of engineering. It is not only the world's largest wooden building, it is home to the world's largest bronze Buddha statue. Surrounded by the beautiful gardens and wildlife, the Kegon School of Buddhism is centered here and the grounds hold, uh, hold many artifacts of Japanese and Buddhist history. Deer are allowed to freely roam the grounds as messenger of the Shinto gods. Next slide po. Great Buddha of Kamakura. The Great Buddha of Kamakura is a colossal outdoor representation of Amida Buddha, one of Japan's most celebrated Buddhist figures. Cast in bronze, the Great Buddha stands over 13 meters or 40 feet high and weighs nearly 93 tons. The statue reportedly dates from 1252. Although it originally was housed in a small wooden temple, the Great Buddha now stands in the open air as the original temple was washed away in a tsunami in the 15th century. Next slide po. The next one is the Himeji Castle. The Himeji Castle is considered the best exciting example of Japanese castle architecture. It was fortified to defend against enemies during the feudal period, but it has been rebuilt many times throughout the centuries and reflects the different design periods. It survived the bombings of World War II and is frequently seen in domestic and foreign films, including the James Bond movie You Only Live Twice. The white exterior and design give the castle the appearance of a breathtaking flight, earning the castle the nickname White Egret Castle. Next slide po. Kiyomizu-dera. The Kiyomizu-dera Buddhist temple is located in eastern Kyoto and can be traced back as far as the year 798. An indoor waterfall fed from the outside river keeps the temple in the harmony with the nature and none one mill has used in construction. While locals used to jump off the edge to have a wish granted, with a survival rate of 85.4%, modern visitors can enjoy the shrines and talismans and artwork on display without risking life and climb. Next slide po. Jigokudani Monkey Park. It is a famous hot spring area near Nagano. The name Jigokudani, meaning Hell's Valley, is due to steam and boiling water that bubbles out the frozen ground surrounded by steep cliffs and formidably cold forests. It is famous for its large population of wild snow monkeys that go to the valley during the winter when snow covers the park. The monkeys descend from the steep cliffs and forest to sit in the warm hot springs and return to the security of the forest in the evenings. Next one po. The last one is Hiroshima Peace Memorial. The Hiroshima Peace Memorial is a haunting tribute to the lives lost when the atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima on August 6, 1945. Set in a park, the memorial features Genbaku Dome, the only building left standing in the vicinity after the bomb drop. This harsh reminder of a world at war reminds visitors of the importance of human life and honors the victim so they will never be forgotten. The next one. Next slide po. Let's talk about the cuisine and delicacies in Japan. Next slide po. Sushi. Sushi is one of the first foods that spring to mind when we think about Japanese cuisine. This delicacy was one of the first Japanese dishes to be exported to the US after the major restoration in 1868. And since then, its popularity has steadily increased year after year. The word sushi refers to any dish made with Japanese rice and has been seasoned with rice vinegar. Common varieties of sushi include makizushi, sushi rice and fillings rolled up in nori seaweed, nigiri sushi, shaped bite-sized moons of sushi rice with single slices of raw fish or similar drape over the top, and inari sushi, sushi rice stuffed inside packets of inari, a type of seasoned fried tofu. Ramen. Ramen is another dish that is very popular in Japan. Although the origins of ramen are unclear, some say it has its roots in China. The Japanese ramen that is well loved today has become an entity of its own and is much different in flavor. There are many types of ramen and flavors so as a higher chance to appeal to many different people as well. With so many flavors, style, and toppings to choose from, there is never loss for choice. And in my opinion, ramen can greatly differ in taste as well. Tonkotsu ramen made with pork bone is said to be the most popular type of ramen among tourists. Ramen is found in many countries in many variations, so it's easy to figure out why it would also be popular in Japan. Not to mention, it's just that good. There are many places all over Japan that serve ramen and it's usually relatively inexpensive. Enjoy ramen on a cold day or after workout, as the warm heart meal is sure to fill anyone up. Next slide. Curry rice. Known in Japanese as kare or curry rice, Japanese curry is a Yoshoku dish that was originally introduced to the Japanese by the British during the Meiji era. Japanese curry differs from the Indian variety, which the user is more familiar, in that it is generally sweeter in flavor, thicker in texture, and prepared more like a stew, with meat and vegetables being cooked by boiling in water together. Japanese curry is often prepared in Japanese homes with the help of curry rocks, blocks of solidified Japanese curry paste that melts into the stew and thicken up to become a flavorsome curry sauce. Wagashi. The most authentic way to finish off a Japanese meal are matcha tea ceremonies with wagashi. Wagashi are traditional Japanese sweets invented during the Edo period and influenced by prevalent Japanese ingredients and flavors. Most wagashi are made using only a handful of select ingredients, including mochi rice cakes, angko paste, kanten, or yung agar, a vegetarian taken are similar to gelatin, chestnuts, and sugar. The most popular wagashi include dango, sweet mochi balls on skewered sticks often served with sugar syrup, daifuku, mochi rice stuffed with anko, dorayaki, anko sandwich between two thick pancakes and ryokan, blocks of anko, hardened with kanten and sugar. Next slide po. So the last one is tonkatsu. Tonkatsu pork cutlets are one of the many yoshoku or Western style foods that were originally introduced to the Japan by Europeans. Like most other yoshoku foods, the Japanese took the original tonkatsu and made it their own. Today, tonkatsu is made by coating pork chops in crisp panko, breadcrumbs, and deep frying them until they are golden brown in color. They are normally served drizzled in fruit, vegetables-based tonkatsu, sauce with shredded cabbage, and other crisp salad, green on the side. Tonkatsu are also often enjoyed as part of bento box lunch in a Japanese curry known as katsu curry or a sandwich filling. Next slide po. Let's move on to the cultural attributes in Japan. The first one is nationality. Japan nationality can be acquired in three ways: birth, notification, and naturalization. If the father or mother is a Japanese national at the time of birth, if the father died before the child's birth and was a Japanese national at the time of death, if born in Japan and both of the parents are unknown or are without nationality. Japan's nationality law details the conditions by which a person holds nationality of Japan. The primary law governing nationality regulation is the 1950 Nationality Act. Children born to at least one Japanese parent are generally automatically nationals at birth. Birth in Japan does not by itself entitle as a child to Japanese nationality, except when a child would otherwise be stateless. Foreign nationals may acquire citizenship by naturalization after living in the country for at least 5 years and renouncing any previous nationalities. Next slide. So religion. The Japanese religious tradition is made up of several major components, including Shinto, Japan's earliest religion, Buddhism, and Confucianism. Christianity has been only a minor movement in Japan. Shinto and Buddhism are Japan's two major religions. Shinto is as old as the Japanese culture, while Buddhism was imported from the mainland in the 6th century. Since then, the two religions have been coexisting relatively harmoniously and have even complemented each other to a certain degree. Most Japanese consider themselves Buddhist, Shintoist, or both. Religion does not play a big role in the everyday life of most Japanese people today. The average person typically follows the religious rituals at ceremonies like birth, weddings, and funerals, may visit a shrine or temple on New Year, and participates at local festivals or matsuri, most of which have a religious background. Next slide po. So climate. The climate of Japan is cold in the north, where snow and ice dominate in winter, temperate in the central regions, and almost tropical on the small southern islands. The rains are abundant almost everywhere, and in between summer and autumn, the country is hit by torrential rains and typhoons. The climate of Japan is influenced by the monsoon circulation. In winter, it's affected by cold currents from the northwest, and in summer by wet and humid currents of tropical origin. Next slide. Language. The national language is Standard Japanese, and regional is Ainu, Amami, Oshima, Kunigami, Miyako, Okinawan, Yaeyama, Yonaguni. Ainu, or more precisely Hokkaido Ainu, is a language spoken by a few elderly members of the Ainu people on the northern Japanese island of Hokkaido. It is a member of the Ainu language family, itself considered a language family isolate with no academic consensus of origin. Hello? Amami Oshima. The Amami language or languages, also known as Amami Oshima or simply Oshima or Big Island, is a Ryukyuan language spoken in the Amami Islands south of Kyushu. The southern variety of Sochi Township may be a distinct language more closely related to Okinawan, that is to northern Oshima. Kunigami or Northern Okinawan language is a Ryukyuan language of Northern Okinawa Island in Kunigami District and City of Nago, otherwise known as the Yabaru region, historically the territory of the Kingdom of Hokusan. Miyako. Miyako is a southern Ryukyu language spoken in the Miyako Islands to the southern of Okinawa in Japan. There are possibly 10,000 to 15,000 Miyakoan speakers, most of whom are over 60 years old. Okinawan. The Okinawan language or Central Okinawan is a northern Ryukyuan language spoken primarily in the southern half of the island of Okinawa, as well as in the surrounding islands of Kerama, Kumejima, Tonaki, Aguni, and a number of smaller peripheral islands. Yaeyama. The Yaeyama language is a southern Yukon language spoken in the Yaeyama Islands, the southernmost inhabited island group in Japan, with a combined population of about 53,000. The Yaeyama Islands are situated in the southern Ryukyu Islands, southwest in the Miyako Islands, and to the east of Taiwan. And the last one is Yonaguni. Yonaguni language is a southern Yukon language spoken by around 400 people on the island of Yonaguni in the Ryukyu Islands, the westernmost of the chain lying just east of Taiwan. It is most closely related to Yaeyama. Next slide po. Let's talk about the festivals in Japan. Yuki Matsuri. The Sapporo Snow Festival, or Sapporo Yuki Matsuri, is held during 1 week every February in Hokkaido's capital Sapporo. It is one of Japan's most popular winter events. The Sapporo Snow Festival was started in 1950 when high school students built a few snow statues in Odori Park. It has since developed into a large commercialized event featuring spectacular snow and ice sculptures and attracting more than 2 million visitors from Japan and across the world. The Snow Festival staged on three sites: the Odori site, Susikino site, and Chudome site. Next slide po. Omizutori. Omizutori is the commonly used name for Shuni, a series of events held annually from March 1 to 14 at the Daiji Temple. This collection of Buddhist repentance rituals has been held every year for over 1,250 years, making it one of the oldest recurring Buddhist events in Japan. Omizutori is performed at Nigatsudo Hall, a sub-complex of the Taiji, which stands not far from the temple main hall on the slope of a hill. Nigatsudo literally means second month hall, referring to the second month of the lunar calendar when Omizutori has traditionally been held. The second month of the lunar calendar roughly corresponds to March of the solar calendar. Next one. Next slide po. The next one is Jin Matsuri. The festival of Yasaka Shrine is the most famous festival in Japan. It takes place over the entire month of July. There are many different events, but the grand procession of floats, or the Yamaboko Junko, on July 17 is particularly spectacular. Very enjoyable are also the festive evenings preceding the procession, or the Yoyama. From 2014, a second procession of floats was reintroduced on July 24 after a hiatus of 48 years. The second procession features fewer and smaller floats than the one on July 17. Next slide po. Aomori Nebuta Matsuri. The Aomori Nebuta Matsuri is one of the three great festivals of Tohoku and is designated as one of Japan's important intangible folk cultural properties. During the festival, flutes known as Ninyo Nebuta are followed by dancers known as Haneto, who dance while shouting "Rasera Rasera." The festival is held annually from 2 to 7 August. The Nebuta floats wait on the route from 2 to 6 August and then start moving all at once. The Nebuta that win prize head the parade on the final day on 7 August, and the Kaijo Unko that sees six prize winning Nebuta put aboard boats that cruise through Muiri Bay begins at night. The Kaijo Unko is the festival finale that coincides with the Amori Fireworks Festival, during which over 10,000 fireworks are launched. Additionally, one of the best parts of the Aomiri Nebuta Matsuri is that anyone can participate in the film as a Hane dancer if they just follow the rules. You can buy a costume at a local department store or even rent one, so participating in the dance is easier than might you think. Next one is the Kishiwada Tanjiri Matsuri. Rhythmic drumming pulses through the atmosphere thick with anticipation. The airy melody of a flute wafts between the beats of the drum, the chants of carpoolers drift across crowds of the spectators abuzz with excitement. They have gathered to witness one of the greatest spectacles in Japan, the Kishiwada Daijiri Matsuri. As religiously, they gather here every September to witness a festival celebrated as Japan's largest, if not greatest, Danjiri Matsuri or floating festivals. Held across the weekend before respect for the aged day, the Kishiwada Danjiri Matsuri basks in 300 years of local tradition. During the festival, 35 neighborhood teams race their nearly 4-ton danjiri through the streets of Kishiwada. Their energetic and high-spirited performance is an impressive display of strength and endurance. Each team is vying for glory with the reputation of their neighborhood at stakes. Next slide po. And the last slide is clothing in Japan. Next slide po. Traditional and modern clothing in Japan. There are typically two types of clothing worn in Japan, which is the traditional clothing known as Japanese clothing or wafuku, including the national dress of Japan, the kimono, and Western clothing, which is yofuku, which encompasses all else not recognized as either national dress or the dress of another country. Traditional Japanese fashion represents a long-standing history of traditional culture encompassing color palettes developed in the Heian period, silhouettes adapted from Tang Dynasty clothing and cultural traditions, motifs taken from Japanese culture and nature and traditional literature, and styles of wearing primarily fully developed by the end of the Edo period. The most well-known form of traditional Japanese fashion is the kimono, translated literally as something to wear or thing worn on the shoulders. Other types of traditional fashion includes clothing of the Ainu people, known as the Atus, and the clothes of the Yukuan people, which is known as Yusu. Most notably including the traditional fabrics in Bingata and Bashofu, produced on the Ryukyu Islands. Modern Japanese fashion mostly encompasses yofuku, or yung Western clothes, though many well-known Japanese fashion designers such as Issey Miyake, Yohji Yamamoto, and Rei Kawakubo have taken inspiration from at the times designed clothes, taking influence from traditional fashion. Their works represent a combined impact on the global fashion industry, with many pieces displayed at fashion shows all over the world, as well as having had an impact within the Japanese fashion industry itself, with many designers either drawing from contributing to Japanese street. Despite previous generations wearing traditional clothing near entirely, following the end of World War II, Western clothing and fashion became increasingly popular due to their increasingly available nature and over time their cheaper price. It is now increasingly rare for someone to wear traditional clothing as everyday clothes, and over time traditional clothes within Japan have garnered an occasion association with being difficult to wear and expensive. As such, traditional garments are now mainly worn for ceremonies and special events, with the most common time for someone to wear traditional clothes being to summer festivals, when the yukata is more appropriate. Outside of this, the main groups of people most likely to wear traditional clothes are geisha, maiko, and sumo wrestlers, all of whom are required to wear traditional clothing in their profession. Traditional Japanese clothing has garnered fascination in the Western world as the representation of the different culture, first gaining popularity in 1860s. Japanese saw traditional clothing, some produced exclusively for export and differing in the construction form, the clothes worn by Japanese people every day, exported to the West, where it soon became a popular item of clothing for artists and fashion designers. Fascination for the clothing of Japanese people continued into World War II, where some stereotypes of Japanese culture such as geisha girls became widespread. Over time, depictions and interest in the traditional and modern Japanese clothing has generated discussion surrounding cultural appropriation and the ways in which clothing can be used to stereotype a culture in 2016. The kimono Wednesday event held at the Boston Museum of Arts became a key example of this. And that's all for the country of Japan.
Thank you, Miss Chelin, for the wonderful tour in Japan. Now, may I call Miss Ashley Santiago and Miss Shaina Sapwai to tour us in United Arab Emirates.
Thank you, Miss Apoy. Miss Pascual. Next slide, please. Okay, a brief history of UAE. The UAE consists of 7 emirates and was founded on December 2, 1971 as a federation. Six of the 7 emirates are Abu Dhabi, Dubai, Sharjah, Ajman, Al Quwain, and Fujairah, combined on that date. The seventh, Ras Al Khaimah, joined the federation on February 10, 1972. The seven sheikdoms were formerly known as the Trucial States in reference to the treaty relations established with the British in the 19th century. The British withdrew from the Persian Gulf in 1971 and the Trucial States became a federation called the United Arab Emirates. Next slide, please. Geography. The United Arab Emirates, or the UAE, is a country in the eastern part of the Arabian Peninsula located on the southeastern coast of the Persian Gulf and the northwestern coast of the Gulf of Oman. Next slide, please. Okay, the current population of the United Arab Emirates is 10,107,075 as of Wednesday, April 27, 2022, based on Worldometer elaboration of the latest United Nations data. The United Arab Emirates 2020 population is estimated at 9,890,402 people at mid-year according to the UN data. The United Arab Emirates population is equivalent to 0.13% of the total world population, and the UAE ranks number 93 in the list of countries by population. And the land has a total area of 83,600 square kilometers. Next slide, please. Their culture. Emiratis follow distinct and peculiar ways of greeting each other, with men touching each other's nose in what is called as Emirati kiss or a kuswak, a steady handshake using the right hand, and a warm embrace between the same gender are also some common ways of greetings. Though Though to the religious adherents, a handshake or a hug is often not used as a way to greet between the opposite gender. As an alternative, greeting a brief nod with a hand placed on the heart and a smile is often used. Clicking pictures of people, especially women, without their permission, staring or complimenting women, criticizing Islam, dressing inappropriately in public, are some of the other acts that are frowned upon in the UAE. Further, showing public display of affection of any scale is prohibited here and is a punishable offense by law. Next slide, please. Okay, their customs and traditions. Emiratis practice a variety of customs and traditions that are distinct and unique to their country. For instance, Arab coffee is served in Dala, the Arabic coffee pot to guests in this country as a symbol of hospitality. It is deemed rude and disrespectful to refuse it as it's offered in welcoming gesture. Refusing coffee or snacks may be seen as offensive. It is also important to remove shoes when entering an Emirati home and show great appreciation for the meal served. Additionally, visitors should make sure to shake hands with the host on arrival and departure of their home. Next slide, please. Being an Arab country, it is a surprise that Islam is the most popular religion. In fact, the religion is the state religion in the Emiratis. However, this does not mean that other religions like Christianity are not allowed. Data from the Pew Research Center shows that 76% of the population is Muslim, with Christianity coming next with a following of 12.6%. The non-Muslims in the UAE's populations are mostly immigrants from foreign countries who have arrived in the UAE for work and business. Among the Muslims, the bigger chunk, about 97% are Sunni, while the remaining 3% are Shia Muslims. Other religions include Hinduism, 6.6%, 6%, Buddhism, 2%, and a few other minority religions. Despite the fact that the government does not interfere with other religions, it prohibits the spreading of non-Islamic religions through any kind of media, since this is classified as proselytizing. Presently, there are more than 30 churches, while Hindus have only one temple at pyzw. The country is home to some of the most beautiful mosques in the world, and there are specific laws in place that so that Muslims can practice Islam. For instance, working hours are reduced by 2 hours during Ramadan. Also, the official working days are Sunday to Thursday, so that Muslims can offer the Friday prayers without any difficulty. While all religions are considered to be equal in the country, any encouragement given to Muslims to convert their faith is seen as a heinous crime. For instance, there have been cases where people were deported out of the country for distributing Bibles to Muslims. Next slide, please. The style of dressing of the Emiratis is influenced by Islamic texts preaching modesty and conservativeness, and thus men and women alike wear clothes that cover most parts of their body. Abaya, a long black coat that covers the whole body except the feet, hands, and face, is the traditional dress of women in the Arab Emirates. It is often paired up with niqab to cover hands and face by women. Burqa, an outer clothing piece worn over daily outfit. It is also used by women to cover their whole body and face when they go out in public to prevent exposure of skin. While kandura is a long and loose-fitting robe, usually white in color, that is worn by men in the Arab Emirates and is generally paired with kutra, a typical headscarf that can be tied in various styles. The length of kandura is often used to determine the status of a person, such as the longer the road is, the more wealthy the person is. And that's all. Thank you. Now, we are on this part to discuss about the native languages and types of peoples, the scenes, research attractions, and visa requirements.
Thank you, Ms. Santiago. Now let's move on to the native languages and types of people. Next slide, please. Ethnic groups, this is noong 2020 pa po. So 30% Indian, 15% Emirati, 10.7% Bangladesh, 9.7% Pakistani, 8.8% Egyptian, 5.5% Filipino, 3.1% Indonesian, 2.0% Yemeni, 1.6% Jordanian, 1.3% Sudanese, and 9.7% is others. The official language is Arabic and recognized language is English. Next slide, please. Sushi and delicacies. Next slide po. First is shawarma. We all know naman kung ano yung shawarma. So, shawarma is a popular dish, has traveled far beyond the UAE. Made from slow roasted and spiced meat, usually chicken or lamb. A shawarma is a kind of Middle Eastern sandwich. Next is stuffed camel. Beside being by name the Guinness World Book of Records as one of the largest food you can eat in the entire world, stuffed camel is considered one of the most luxurious and celebratory food in Dubai. Next slide, please. Al-Haris. This dish is a labor of love that literally takes hours to make, but the ingredients is remarkably and simple. Next is mehalabia. A refreshing pudding, Mahalabia's most standout flavors come from rose water and pistachios. Next slide, please. Guzi, also called kusi or osi. This dish is made from whole roasted lamb and mutton and is often served on kebab shawaris with vegetable and hazelnuts over rice. Next is matchboosh, is traditional dish of Dubai. Matchboosh has a flavor that is unique, sharp, spicy, and rich. Cloves, cardamom, cassia bark, turmeric, and baharat are also used to flavor this dish, which gives it an impressive and satisfying depth of flavors. Next slide, please. Esh Hasaria, a dessert in a class by itself. Esh Hasaria is called the bread of the harem. Its texture resembles cheesecake and it has a cream frosting. Next is cheese tawuk sandwich, one of the undiscovered gem of UAE that not a lot of tourists have discovered. It is extremely popular with the locals and it is found in any Middle Eastern food joint. Next slide, please. Manakish, a local favorite. This is a very popular Lebanese snack. It is a flat bread filled with cheese and is cooked in a huge oven. Loads of cheese, you can add any vegetable, meats, or oils and spices on top. And lastly, we have the reheat, a slow-cooked stew. There is a famous food of UAE consisting of chicken, lamb or goat, and roasted vegetables, potatoes, tomatoes, marrow, and pumpkin. This stew is served on top of traditional thin Emirati bread called rigab. Next slide, please. Now let's see and enjoy their different tourist attractions. Next slide po. First is Burj Khalifa. The Burj Khalifa is one of the United Arab Emirates' most famous building and the soaring sky-high landmark of Dubai. Next is Sheikh Zayed Mosque. Sorry po for the wrong pronunciation. So this is Abu Dhabi's Sheikh Zayed Grand Mosque is a mammoth modern mosque of incredible beauty. Next slide, please. Jebel Jais. This is a mountain naman, so hiker can enjoy the view from Jebel Jais, the highest peak in the United Arab Emirates. Jebel Jais in the Emirate of Ras Al Khaimah is a major activity center. Next is Labur, the newest and most spectacular museum in the United Arab Emirates. The Labur Abu Dhabi takes visitors on journey through human history. Next slide, please. Al-Fahidi Quarter. The Al-Fahidi Quarter of Dubai, also known as Bastakia, is the largest remaining fragment of all Dubai and shouldn't be missed. This small heritage area really evokes the simpler, gentle past of the city before the skyscrapers took over the skyline. Next is Jebel Hafid. On the edge of the oasis city of Al Ain is one of the most popular destinations for a quick and easy nature break out of Dubai city. The cool mountain air on the summit also offers respite from the coastal heat during summer. Next slide, please. Dubai Miracle Garden. Although the Dubai Miracle Garden is a man-made, it is still one of the most beautiful places in the country for the nature lovers to visit. The garden consists of several large floral arrangements. Next is Abu Dhabi Fossil Dunes. This natural wonder is made of wind-swept sand that hardened over time. Next slide, please. Al Watba Wetland. A natural reserve, this is a place also known as the Flamingo City of the UAE. This is one of the few wildlife areas which is undisturbed by mankind. Home to hundreds of flamingos, The wetland is beautiful for long walks through proper woodlands and shrubbery. And lastly, we have Masfoot Ajman. Masfoot is one of the most preferred and beautiful summer retreats in the UAE. Nestled on the outskirts of Ajman, Masfoot is the higher altitude which make it population-free. It is an ideal spot for walking, mountain biking, picnics, and wadi exploration. Next slide, please. The basic requirements for the Emirati e-visa Filipino petitioners must meet include the following. By the way, an e-visa po is electronic visa. So yun nga, you must have a Filipino passport valid for at least 180 days on their arrival date in the UAE. Next, supply a digital image of the information page of the passport. Next, provide a passport style photograph in color of the applicant. Next, possess a bank card to pay the e-visa process fee. And lastly, use a frequently accessed email address to request the e-visa. Next slide po. Application for the e-visa for the UAE for Filipino travelers. Sorry. Application for the e-visa for the Filipino travelers. Filipino citizens can request their e-visa for the UAE via online form. First, full name, nationality, arrival date, selected emirate for visit, email address, gender, date of birth, country of birth, religion, current occupation, and qualification. Next slide, please. Filipinos will then have to share some passport details such as ones listed below. The passport number, issuing country, and dates of issued and expiration. In addition, visitors from the Philippines planning a family holiday in UAE can include their dependents in a joint e-visa petition. They can list their spouse, children, or any family member over 60 under their care. They will have to supply supporting documents such as family or birth certificates account for their request. That's all. Back to you, Ms. Pascual.
Thank you, Miss Saina and Miss Ashley. So now may I call Miss Rean Romantico and Jelaika to tour us in South Korea.
Thank you, Miss Jewel. Hello everyone, my name is Jelaika, your reporters for today. Next slide, please. So before I start discussing the geographical characteristics of South Korea, let me tell you a brief history of South Korea. The history of South Korea formally begins with the Japanese surrender on September 2, 1945. South Korea and North Korea are entirely different countries, despite still being the same people in the same peninsula. The division was meant to be temporary and was intended to return to a unified Korea. Unfortunately, the two parties was unable to agree on the implementations of joint trusteeship over Korea because of two different opinions. The peninsula was divided by the Korean Demilitarized Zone and the two separate governments stabilized into the existing political entities of North and South Korea. Next slide, please. Geographical characteristics. So let's discuss the geographical characteristics of South Korea. South Korea is located in East Asia, on the southern portion of the Korean Peninsula, located
from the far east of the Asian landmass. The only country with a land border to South Korea is North Korea, lying to the north with 238 kilometers of the border running along the Korean demilitarized zone. South Korea is mostly surrounded by water and has 2,413 kilometers of coastline along Three Sea. To the west is the Yellow Sea called Sohae Korean. South Korea literally means West Sea. To the south is the East Asia Sea, and to the east is the Sea of Japan, called Donghae Korean in South Korea. Literally means East Sea. Geographically, South Korea landmass is approximately 1,032 square kilometers, 200, 290 square kilometers of South Korea are occupied by water. Geologically, South Korea consists of a large part of Precambrian rocks more than 540 million years old. The country is largely mountainous with small valleys and narrow coastal plains. South Korea consists in large part of Precambrian rock more than about 540 million years old. The country is largely mountainous with small valleys and narrow coastal plains. The Taebaek Mountains run in roughly a north-south direction along the eastern coastline and northward into North Korea, forming the country's drainage divide. From them, several mountain ranges branch off with a northeast-southwest orientation. The most important of these are Taebaek Mountains, which undulate in a long shape across the peninsula. None of South Korea's mountains are very high. The Taebaek Mountains reach an elevation of 5,604 feet at Mount Sorak in the northeast, and the Taebaek Mountains reach 6,283 feet at Mount Chiri, the highest peak in South Korea. The extinct volcano Mount Hala on Jeju Island is 6,398 feet above sea level. Next slide, please. There are three principal rivers of South Korea: the Han, Kun, and Nakdong. All have their sources in Taebaek Mountains, and they flow between the ranges before entering the lowland plains. Nearly all the country's rivers flow westward or southward into the Yellow Sea or the East China Sea. Next slide, please. Their climate: cold, dry winter and hot, humid summer. South Korea's climate is characterized by a cold, relatively dry winter and a hot and humid water. The coldest average monthly temperatures in winter drop below freezing except along the southern coast. Next slide, please. Facts and stats in South Korea. Their official name is Republic of Korea. Location: Far East. Capital: Seoul. Major cities in South Korea are Seoul, Busan, Incheon, Daegu, Daejeon. The largest city in South Korea is Seoul. Population is 51,352,317 as of May 22, 2022. Language: Korean and English. Religion: Christianity and Buddhism. Religion in South Korea is diverse. A slightly majority of South Korea have no religion. Christianity and Buddhism are the dominant confessions among those who affiliate with the formal religion. Buddhism and Confucianism are the most influential religions in the lives of the South Korean people. Next slide, please.
Sorry, nakamute pala. So let me discuss to you the visa requirements and legal documentation of South Korea. Valid passport, syempre kailangan ng valid passport at dapat at least 6 months yung validity. Passport size, it should be 3.5 centimeter times 4.5 centimeter. Two photographs that are recent and in color with a white background. Of course, you need a proof of accommodations. Cover letter, original bank statement of at least 6 months to prove that you have financial means to cover the cost of your trip. Trip itinerary, prove that you have hotel reservations and pay slip. Vaccination certificate for yellow fever if you travel through or come from a yellow fever. And if you are employed, you need to show proof of leave. And if you are retired, you have to provide your pension book or statements. And of course, if you are visiting a friend or relative, you need to provide an invitation letter, the inviter's ID, proof like a passport and proof of address. That's all. May I call Rian Romantico to discuss the major attractions, delicacies, and culture attributes.
Wala naman specific. Pero ang Korean name niyan is Hanbondo Bimutang Side. 네, 안녕하세요. 저는 카이입니다. 오늘은 출장입니다. Charot lang. Kapasikat. So, your audience for today. So, this Lotte word is pronounced in Korean as Lotte World. So, 네, 감사합니다. Ayun. It's ano po, 전북 전주 한옥 마을. 네, 감사합니다. Kaya 남이섬 정합휴양지. 양지.
stage located next to the water, where the art center sometimes hold performance with